All right, guys, on today's video, I want to take one of my plants. This particular plant is a Rheingold arborvitae, but it's just like all of my other plants in that it's in a trade gallon size pot. We propagated it, grew it ourselves, but all of our hostas, hydrangeas, green giants, snowball bushes, whatever, all we have are virtually all of them are grown in these same size pots. And the question that I want to ask today is not how much do we sell these for, but how much profit do we actually make off of these plants, and what might you expect to make off of these plants. This year, for the first time, we moved our sales point to $7 because our cost of everything has gone up this year. So yeah, we have a lot of fun out here in our backyard and we enjoy doing this, but we want to be able to make some money doing it too. So we had to go to $7 today, or this year. So today on this video, I want to look at what does it actually cost to grow and produce a plant like this. What does the pot cost? What does the potting soil cost? What does the fertilizer cost? What are the inputs in this? And maybe this will help you figure out if growing plants in your backyard is for you or not. We're selling these for $7, so it's important to know, do we make $1 off of them, $2, $5? Like, what do we actually make in profit on these? So I want to let you know on this video today. Now, the first ingredient that is going to cost you money that you're going to have in your pot or in your plant is potting soil. Now, as you can see, I'm sitting here in my potting soil pile, and this is just a hardwood bark mulch. And that's important that you use the right ingredients, but there's 1,000 ways to make potting soil. But I buy a bulk product like this as opposed to a bagged product. It's going to always be a lot cheaper to buy in bulk if you can, but it's also, the ingredients available to you are going to depend on where you live. So here in the southeast where I live, or really in the mid-south, hardwood bark is readily available, and I buy mine from a local sawmill, and you can go get it by the pickup truckload for about $30 a load, and that's for 2 yards. And I take that product and I mix it with pine bark, which is just a product that I do buy in a bag from a store like Lowe's. And I have managed to kind of figure out a mixture that works really good for me. I've done a video on a DIY potting soil mixture. You can check it out right up here. And it's the same mixture, it's the very mixture that I use, but I am about $40 a yard into my potting soil mix. And I use these trade gallon pots for just about everything that I use, and a yard of potting soil is about 240 of these pots. So at about $40 a yard, that's about what it works out to for my mixture that I make in my area. You can get about 240 of these, and that comes out to about 16 cents per pot. So when you're thinking about your inputs in your plants, one of the primary things you got to have, obviously, is your potting soil. So for me, it's costing about 16 cents a pot. You may be able to find it cheaper than that. You may have to pay more than that, but that's what I have in my potting soil in each pot. A second piece of the puzzle, and you'll just have to excuse us out here. It is extremely windy out here, so sorry about the extra noise, but a second thing that you got to figure out is your pots. Now, pots have usually been really an inconsequential cost almost up until this last year, or even this last 6 months. And with the price of everything around us soaring, pots are no different. So in the last 2, 3, 5 years, I've been able to get these pots for about 15 cents each. And that is just not the case anymore. So if I can find these pots at all, I'm paying about 45 cents each for them now. That is quite an increase. You're talking triple the cost. And not only right now are these pots expensive, they're also really hard to find. One of the questions that you guys like to ask me, probably more than any other question, is where do I get pots, or where do I get this, or where do I get that? Well, I don't have a good answer for you as to where to get pots right now. All I can tell you is Google search, ask people in Facebook groups and nursery groups, and try to find them. But for the purposes of our video today, these pots, and you can use these terracotta colored ones or black ones, and the price may be a little bit different on them, but the reason I have these is because at the time it's what I could find, so I bought them. But right now you're going to have to figure, I hate to say it, but you're going to have to figure about 45 cents a pot. So you got about 16 cents in potting soil, you got about 45 cents in a pot, and the next expense is going to be your fertilizer. All right, the fertilizer that I use for all of my nursery pots is this Florican fertilizer. And listen, guys, I am not an expert on fertilizer. What I tell you guys on my video is what I do in my nursery with my stuff, and it works. So if you think my nitrogen is too high or my potassium is too high, whatever, fine, have at it. Knock yourself out. Go make your own YouTube videos. But I'm showing you what I use. And this is a 50-pound bag of Florican fertilizer. And if you want to come get a look at this, I use 18-5-12. I use it for everything that I have in my nursery, and I don't have any plants in my nursery that suffer whatsoever from using this particular mixture of fertilizer. That being said, this fertilizer is expensive. This bag of fertilizer costs $108. But when you think about how much that is per plant, it's actually not much of an expense at all, because this bag, putting 1 tablespoon per plant, and some plants I put less than that if I'm doing them in smaller pots or something, you can get about 1,200 to 1,500 plants fertilized with 1 bag of this fertilizer. So on a per plant basis, so if you've got this size trade gallon pot right here, you've got about 9 cents in fertilizer in it. So what was that, 16 cents in potting soil? You got about 45 cents in a pot. You've got about 9 cents in fertilizer, and it does not pay to go cheap on your fertilizer just so you can save 10 or 50 bucks. If you go cheap in your nursery, go cheap on something else, but don't feed your plants cheap fertilizer or you will regret it. Your plants will tell on you, they'll look awful, so it's an expense that you don't need to cut corners on. But again, on a per plant basis, this fertilizer, an expensive fertilizer, is about 9 cents per pot. All right, guys, so I'm sitting out here in my front yard, and here's the plant that I started the video with, this Rheingold arborvitae, and here's a smaller version of it that's just probably a season behind, a growing season behind. But what I want to talk to you about now is the cost of the actual plant. We've got the pot, we've got the soil, we've got the fertilizer. What about the plant itself? Well, I propagated these plants off of these shrubs that you see sitting beside me. So as far as me actually putting any money into these plants, the amount of money in these plants is zero. So I try to propagate as many of my own plants as I can, and part of it is because that's really what's fun about doing this to me, is seeing if you can grow these plants yourself. Like I just, that's a real joyful thing to me, is to see a little stick turn into a plant and grow it out into something that's cell size like this. So these plants, these particular plants, I don't have any actual money in them, but the story of cost really doesn't end there, because there's another kind of piece of this puzzle that I want to talk about, and it's what I'm just going to call the X factor, because I don't know what else to call it. So I've got a couple of common hostas here in my hands, and one thing about cost and plant production is, you know, you can always buy in small plants like this. I bought this one in. Now, let's say that I paid $2 for this plant. I didn't pay that much for it, but let's just say, for example, that I did. Now, if I had made this by division, it would probably take an additional growing season to get it to this size than it would take, since I bought this one as a nice sized plant. So in other words, this saved me a year by spending a little bit of money on this. So let's say that I spent $2 on this. Again, it was less than that, but a lot of small plants, you're going to spend at least $2 on them. So let's just say that I spent $2 on this, grew it for 1 season, and then the following season or the following year, it's this size and ready to sell. So then I've got potting soil, I've got a pot, I've got fertilizer, then I have the cost of the plant itself, but it's ready to sell a year sooner or 2 years sooner, and all plants grow at different rates. But that's another way to look at this, and I'm not really smart enough, or I don't know what that's called in the world of business, when it takes you longer to make the money versus when you spend more up front to do something that you're going to get a return on faster. So is it better to make $4 on a plant in 2 years, or is it better to make $6 on a plant in 3 years? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but that's just another piece of the puzzle. And when you're buying in small plants, you can buy them anywhere from 90 cents to $3 or $4 or $5 or more per plant. It just depends on the plant, but that's another way to think of it. Whereas you propagate your own plants, you don't have any money in the actual plant itself, but you're going to have more time, and certainly your time is worth something. I don't know how to figure that out, but it's something for you to think about and be aware of anyway. And there are other things that you have to figure in, I guess, like water. Well, my water bill never goes up during the course of the entire year. So I'm not watering at all during the winter, and I'm watering in the summer, and it just doesn't go up. If you live somewhere where water is expensive to buy, I have no idea what to tell you. I'm just telling you about my experience where I live here in West Tennessee. But if you do this the way that we do it, and again, all I'm telling you is how we do this, you can take a plant like any of our trade gallon $7 plants, and you're going to make upwards of $6 profit per plant that you sell when you propagate them yourselves. There may be better ways to do it where you can sell more plants faster by buying in larger plants and not having so much time in them and all of that. But the way that we do most of what we do, you're going to make profit about $6 a plant. And maybe that's worth knowing for some of you. All right, guys, so I hope this video is helpful to y'all today. Thanks for watching. Leave me a comment down below if this is helpful to you, or if you had any questions about it, or if you want to challenge me on something I said, that's fine. Besides that, I love y'all. It's great to see y'all watching again today, and I'll see you on the next one.